Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio, and now for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay. Clay, great show last week with Mark and Kathy Abernathy.
They're always an interesting couple.
Yes, they are. Interesting conversation about the political landscape, and they've got the know-how here in Kern County. So,
well, not only here, but they handled Kevin McCarthy's election, yes, and also Bill Thomas's.
Yes, yep. Next week we have an old friend, Sally Pipes, president of the Pacific Research Institute and author of The Truth About Obamacare.
And also the new book on 10 ways to get rid of Obamacare.
The Pipes Plan. This week we have another special show. In the second half, our guest is Brian Johnson, who is the Western Regional Director of the Right to Life League. But on the phone with us right now is nationally syndicated weekly columnist, author of over 150 publications, occasional substitute host for Rush Limbaugh, Dr. Walter E. Williams. Professor Williams, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, Clay and I spent most of our lives in Los Angeles, and your bio says you went to Cal State L.A.
That is right. And I think from 1962 until 66, I believe.
Well, let's see. That makes you a little bit older than Clay and a little bit older than me, not a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've been living one-third of the time our country has been in existence.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an interesting perspective.
Well, actually, Doctor, you're younger than I am.
Okay, you're kidding.
But Marty's being kind. He's turned a leaf.
I've turned a leaf this week. You also got your master's and your PhD in economics from UCLA.
Yes. And it was quite a chore going to UCLA. It was I was in over my head initially. It was when I was going there. It was in the top 10 economics departments in our country, and. So I really had to get my act together.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall Angela Davis teaching there while you were there?
No, she was not.
Yeah, she was a professor there for a while.
Not at UCLA?
Yes,
yeah. In fact,
I thought she was at Santa Cruz.
Oh no, I think she ended up at Santa Cruz. But it's interesting. Kathy Abernathy, who was on last week, actually walked out of her class at UCLA. I think that had to be about 1969, so it was probably a couple of years after you were there. But
no, I graduated I got my doctorate in 1971.
Oh, in 1971. Okay, so you were there relatively close to the same time.
Yeah.
But my apologies for going to UCLA. I mean, we all have our crosses to bear. I'm a big USC fan, so.
Here we're fighting a war.
But UCLA, we owned basketball for a long time.
This is true. We're
fighting a war in Vietnam, and then we've got a communist teaching at the school we're paying taxes for.
Interesting contradiction in terms. As an economic professor, you must have, you must have had a lot of fun with looking at President Obama's recent statement about the Keystone Pipeline. What do you have to say about the economics behind that?
Now you have the wrong guy for this interview because I don't watch the news very much. I cannot handle it.
Okay.
I mean, and I can I've heard maybe since Obama has been president, I might have caught a total of 5 minutes of his comments, and that's just really a slow response to finding the remote.
Would I deduce from that?
But I do read something, and I think that he's just kind of caving into the environmental wackos.
Sure. Yeah.
And kind of interestingly, I mean, environmental wackos are against global warming, but Canada is going to sell their oil to somebody.
Well, they've already said they're going to sell it to the Chinese, which makes no sense. But you can't blame them. That's a free enterprise system. It's like if you're not going to buy it, we'll take it someplace else.
That is right, and it's kind of interesting that Americans are at least the administration is unwilling to buy a lot of oil from people who are our friends as opposed to people who want to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even drill for oil in this country.
That is right. That is absolutely right. And I understand, according to information coming out, that we have the largest deposits of oil of any other country in the world.
Correct.
That is, if you consider the shale oil and if you consider the massive natural gas resources that we're making, we could be energy independent. Then we have 400 years of coal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're even slant drilling. Other countries are slant drilling in the Gulf of Mexico where we're not allowed to drill.
Yeah.
Which again makes no sense at all. We're having a conversation with Dr. Walter E. Williams.
And then, of course, the current president gave, I think it's $2 billion to George Soros and his group to drill, to do deep water drilling, which is deeper than what we were doing in the Gulf, and we closed down the Gulf.
Yeah. Well, politics makes some strange bedfellows. The president is more concerned about getting reelected than what's good for our country.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you really have been watching some news then.
Did you catch Rick Perry dropping out of the race this morning and endorsing Newt Gingrich?
No, I just I saw that. I was working on my computer, and I saw one of those email things saying that that Rick Perry is going to drop out. I didn't know that he dropped out already.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he dropped out and he endorsed Newt this morning.
Yes, and he did that this morning. Actually, we're playing this on Saturday, but we're actually taping it on Thursday morning. So I had a question for you on that. First of all, before I go there, I wanted to talk a little bit about your website. Dr. Williams, the other night I got onto your website and I started reading your syndicated columns, because here in Bakersfield I don't think we get your columns. Mm-hmm. But I fell in love with that website, and I must have spent about 2.5 hours just going through your columns.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, and there's a lot more on the website, and I hope you took advantage of the gift that's on my website.
Oh no! Well, I consider the syndicated columns a gift.
No,
there's another gift.
There's a gift on the website for it's been there for a number of years.
I didn't notice that. What gift is it?
Well, it's a certificate of amnesty and pardon that I'm giving to all Americans of European ancestry, both for their own grievances and those of their forebears against my people, so that they stop feeling guilty and stop acting like damn fools.
I like that. Well, see, I get lucky on that deal, because I'm originally Canadian, and my parents are from Europe, so that okay, I can see who that would apply. But thank you for the certificate of amnesty. I appreciate that.
Well,
and there's a lot of other good stuff on there, recommended readings and recommended websites, and actually there's one something I wrote some years ago. It's called Economics for the Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 10-part series.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, it's just plain economics, the understandable economics for people who would like to have maybe a couple hours worth of reading. Maybe it's not even a couple hours worth of reading, and get a fairly good understanding of economics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think of our current taxation situation? And
I think it's very, very counterproductive to our country. And I think that we have to recognize that, and I believe that any economist, either conservative or liberal, he'll recognize that if you tax something, you're going to get less of it, and subsidize something, you're going to get more of it. And so what we're doing in many instances, we're taxing productive behavior. I think one of the most vicious taxes that we have on the books is the estate tax, and why the estate tax is vicious is because when people pay their estate tax, they're taking dollars away from activities that are producing something, such as selling stocks and selling bonds or selling their businesses, and those dollars are being transferred to consumption by the government. That is, they're taking high-powered money and using it for low-powered uses.
And many times they're doing a forced sale where you're selling things at a discount just to pay the government.
That's right. And if you keep in mind, we would not have the kind of tax problems if we did not have the kind of spending problems. And what the average American does not know is that we went from 1787 until 1920, and the federal government's share of the GDP was no more than 3%, except during wartime. And today, the federal government's share of the GDP is approaching 30%.
Wow.
And so if, and matter of fact, if you one of the ways to get government back to where the founders envisioned, a very limited government, is if Congress only did the constitutionally authorized functions of the federal government, I doubt whether we would be spending $800 billion a year instead of close to $4 trillion.
You know, I was noticing in one of your articles, an article you wrote in December called Gullible Americans, you were talking about the fact that in 1913, when the tax code was initially implemented, only 0.5% of the income earners were affected. So,
oh, that is absolutely right. And Congress and the president at that time were telling the American people that one or 2% of the American people would ever pay a federal income tax. And so they were playing this politics of envy and jealousy again. And by the way, it's kind of an interesting story about the timing of the federal income tax. Is that some of the people who were pushing for the federal income tax were the people who wanted the 18th Amendment, the people who wanted prohibition.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they were pushing. They were pushing very heavily. Why? Because the prohibition movement had been going on since the late 1800s, but Congress would never agree to prohibit the sale of alcohol. And I'll give you one guess why.
Revenue.
Yeah, revenue. That is excise taxes were the major source of revenue for the federal government for most of our history. Then, once they got the federal income tax to serve as a major source of revenue for the government, then they agreed for the constitutional amendment for the prohibition.
Politics.
And then also, you might ask, interestingly, what happened when prohibition was repealed? Well, it was during the 1930s. Well, what was true about the early 1930s? We were in a great recession, and Congress was running low on revenue, and so they say, hey, we can get more revenue if we can repeal prohibition.
Let's pick up there when we get back. We'll be back in a moment. Our guest by phone is Dr. Walter E. Williams.